I think I have one, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm starting to like record now, record some things.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is so new to me. You know, I never really had a chance to do it. I mean, like I've done like little things here and there. I remember like I did talent shows back at my school, and people asked me once to record something, but it's nothing like having to do it with other students now that are in like production and recording who are already went through the class. And I asked them if they can maybe, you know, help me and record some things because I want to have like, you know, a disc that I can give to people because I do gigs all around.
Yeah.
And I never noticed how much I have to actually do. You know what I mean? Like to give these guys an idea. Like I now have to like write all these charts and things. Can like you give me any hints to make it easier for the people that are recording me and like or producing or whatever, you know, the whole thing. Like can you give me any hints to make it easier for them so like it winds up the best that it can be?
Sure. I mean, so are you singing and playing?
Singing and playing guitar, and then I have other guys that come in and they do, you know, I have a guy who plays bass, a guy who plays drums, and a guy who plays lead.
So you feel like you have the musician thing covered. It's the communication between
I wrote
you.
down the charts. And
okay, but it's the communication between you and who's ever in the control room.
Yeah, I have no idea how to, you know, I don't know lingo, I don't know what exactly to say.
Sure. Well, you know, honestly, it's kind of their job to do that. Like, their responsibility is to capture what you're doing. So, and I don't want to like squarely put, you know, responsibility and blame on them, but it's, you know, it's when you're in the control room, it's your job to translate what's going on in the live room where you're playing the other musicians into something that's coming out of the speakers that represents your vision. So, I mean, but, you know, not to flip it in the other way, but okay, if you need some suggestions about what to do with them, it's like, well, you should talk to them about what do you want it to sound like, and you know how everything's going to be recorded, and you know what key you're going to do the song in, and what tempo, and are you going to use a click track, and are you going to record everything live, or are you going to record one instrument at a time? You know, just I would have a conversation with them and talk about all those things. Is that sort of what you're talking about?
Yeah, because I've had that conversation already, like, am I going to do it live or with tracks? And I'd rather do it live, you know.
I think it's always better.
That's what I like to do, you know. That's what you mean, like, all instruments at once. Like, I'm playing guitar and I'm singing at the same time.
Yeah.
Like, that's how I usually do it.
Yeah.
And then I could add, you know, bass and whatever in afterwards.
Sure.
I mean, I just like to put down the bass track, like the basic track that I'm going to do first.
Yeah.
And then
I think you should record as many elements as you can of the final song live in one take. That's how I always try and work that way.
All right.
And it always results in a more a tighter performance, and you sort of pick out, like, if there's something wrong, then you hear it right away and fix it, versus if you do one thing at a time, then, you know, you didn't realize that drum beat was sort of clashing with the vocal until you did the you know, it's like then you have to go back and fix the drums. You get in this circle of like having to fix stuff. So I really like to I think it's great if people record live, because then you hear it. Like, you know, do a take, go in the control room and listen to it. If it's not what you're liking, then do it again.
Yeah, so that's how I think I like to do it.
But yeah, I mean, communication is a really important part of this job. I mean, my parents are both therapists, so if there's one advantage that I have in the job, I think it's that I grew up, you know, talking about stuff and okay, well, how do you feel about this? How do you feel about it? Okay, well, what if we did it this way? And trying to figure out a compromise, I think, is an important, you know, part of that working relationship between you and whoever is doing the recording on the other side of the glass.
Yeah. Certainly, that kind of communication is a great thing. If somebody's, say, singing out of tune, you probably don't go up to them and say, or, you know, get into the mic in the studio and go, that sucked, that was out of tune. You find some really nice way to say, okay, I really love the way you did this. Now let's just get the, you know, what you're doing on the bridge just a little bit sharper, or something like that. Like we always say here, if I ask you guys in class, you know, to comment on something that somebody just sang, you say the good thing first, and then you can give a criticism or ask a question about something, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's savage.
Any other questions that we have?
I had a couple.
Yeah.
It's kind of in the vein of what Mike was talking about. What makes someone super, from a producer standpoint or from an engineer standpoint, super easy to work with versus like, oh, this is going to be a tough day?
Good question. I I'd say the toughest thing to work around is if someone, you said with a singer, correct?
Sure, yeah.
With a singer is, do they know their voice? Do they know what they're capable of? A common problem that I run into is we'll record something or mix something or, we'll do some recording and then they'll say, well, I want it to sound like this singer. And, oftentimes when people say that, they truly do want to sound like another singer, but they just don't sound like that singer. So that's sort of that's a frustrating block to get through. Well, you don't sing, you have a great voice, but you don't sound like that person. Or, this person has a really aggressive style and you have a really mellow style, or vice versa. So that's probably, I don't run into that all the time, but, every once in a while people will say like, oh, I want it to sound like this vocal, and then I'll be like, okay, cool, well, let's put that vocal on and listen to it. Like, what do you like about it? Because obviously your timbre is different, the song is different, unless we're doing a cover of that song. So, but that's probably not happening. But, there's differences with everyone's voice. So, what I really try and focus on, like after we listen to it and I say, okay, so now we compare to contrast, but like, here's what's great about your voice on the song. Let's make that really stand out and shine and be the focal point. Rather than, you gotta stop focusing on sounding like someone else. Like, what's great about your voice? And like, how can we make that better? So, yeah, that's probably the toughest thing. And then like an easy, what was your other question? Part of it was
what would be the difference between like a super easy day and a day like that you...
Oh, a super easy day when someone goes in and sings it right on the first take.
Yeah.
That's a super easy day. And nothing has to be, edited or tuned or anything like that. I mean, that's a great day. I've had that happen before. Yeah, that does exist. There's an interesting point that I want to bring up. I don't know if you guys read the Lefsitz blog. Bob Lefsitz, you know who that is? So he's a music industry blogger. He's a music attorney, and he has this daily blog. And he wrote about, who was it? Steve Winwood did a cover of, like an acoustic cover of one of his songs. And it was videotaped and was put on YouTube. And there was all this back and forth about whether it was Winwood playing it, live, or had they overdub the guitar and then the vocals and then added the fire crackles, all this stuff. And then all these people wrote in and then Winwood actually wrote in and said, yeah, this is me playing, but there's some brilliant responses, people saying, yeah, he's just actually that good, that he can actually play guitar and sing, and the balance between, the guitar and the voice is just perfect. And there's two microphones sort of placed, 4 or 5 feet from him, not close mic'd. He's just very good at self-mixing, and that's another thing that I think is really important in the studio for almost any type of player is self-mixing, and something that people don't kind of always think about. And that's that's important whether you're a singer or a drummer or an acoustic guitar player or a bass player. And really, what it comes down to is dynamics, and like how are your drummers. It's like sometimes I run into drummers who play the cymbals and hi-hats too hard, and it's very, very hard to record them if the loudest thing in the room is the hi-hat, and vice versa with another thing like with singers. Some singers are really, really, really dynamic, and they go from a whisper to a scream, and that's definitely appropriate for certain types of music, but it's not always what they want to hear when they get their final product. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So dynamics are something that I really try and work on with all performers in the studio, because it's like, well, if the acoustic guitar player is playing too hard, it changes the sound of the guitar. If the drummer is not hitting the snare drum hard enough, it doesn't have enough impact. Or if he's hitting the kick too hard, it has too much thumb. All those things. It's like knowing your dynamic range and knowing whether you should be in a very wide place or in a very narrow place is an very important part of recording.
I think some of that has to do with recording yourself and knowing your own voice. And as a teacher, I tell people to record themselves, to record their lessons, and to
Yeah.
listen back to it. Because it's one thing, it's a little bit like you don't always realize you're doing something until later. And if you can listen back to something, you can go, okay, I really like the way I did that, I didn't like the way I did that, and you actually have a record of it.
It's a really good point.
If I loved something that I was doing, I could say, hey, Eric, when I did this, I really liked it, and I could play it for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then you could say, okay, you liked it because A, B, C, or D.
Yeah.
If I didn't know already.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's a great tool. You know, it's also important when you're listening back to that stuff to really try and distance yourself and not, you know, focus in on, you know, oh, I really liked what I did there, but really listening to it like I didn't just sing that, I didn't just perform it. I'm listening to it from an outsider's perspective, and I'm going to listen to it like and critique it. Like, what are the weak points? What are the points where it's just okay? Because obviously, like the good stuff is good. You know, you have to work on that.
How do you deal with artists who get really, really down on themselves and don't like to listen to themselves? And this is sort of a two-part question because,
Sure.
And then how often, what's the sort of the buffer point between mixing and, okay, I'll now allow you to listen to this. Sometimes we listen so much that we get sick of it. We can't, you know, we can only hear the mistakes or something, as opposed to, okay, I need to get some time away from it.
Sure.
And when my ears are calmed down and clean and I haven't, you know, listened to it for a week straight over and over, I can hear it with fresh ears.
Right. Okay, first parts. I don't know. How do I deal with people that are really down on themselves? I mean, I just talk to them and say, like, you know, I psychologize through it. It's like, okay, this is great, let's focus on the great stuff. I don't run into that very often, where people are really down on themselves. But, you know, yeah, it does come up. People are unhappy with their performances. You know, usually, I mean, there's some people who are just chronically that way, and you can't do anything about it. And then there's some times where there's an actual basis for it. And, you know, if it's chronic, you know, maybe you need to get medication. If it's, you know, if it's symptomatic or it's like, you know, there's really something going on here, then it's like, okay, well, maybe we need to back up, take a step back from this, and really examine what's making you upset, and like, why are you unhappy with this? I try and get, you know, through most of those issues, if it's a, you know, if it's a symptomatic thing, through by like pre-production. So it's like, okay, we know what we're going to go in and do, and it's like a mission. Like, we go in and accomplish it, and, you know, not like every record we just go in and there's no hiccups. There's always, you know, some sort of battle to fight, and something to make better and something to work harder at. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I just, you know, I tell people, like, look, I love what you're singing, and, you know, let's keep doing it until we're happy with it. I mean, sometimes vocals and sometimes music comes in the first take, and sometimes it takes 40 takes. Sometimes it takes more. But I'm not one to throw in the towel, and I you know, I'm willing to spend, you know, 5 minutes or 5 hours on it, depending on how much time we have to. I mean, you know, one of the things I really, really like about making music is that you spend time with a performer, and that CD or, you know, download or whatever, the song or the collection of songs is like you know, sort of like an archive of the time you spend with someone. It's a really special thing to me. So I really like to create archives that I'm going to treasure forever. So it's like, if I don't feel like I'm going to listen to this in, you know, 50 years and love it, then I think we need to keep working.
Yeah, it needs more work.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's actually a great place to end.
Cool.
Eric,
Yeah.
you got another organism?
One more.
Let's
Sorry,
sneak it in at the end.
I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Although you're not an A&R guy, I assume,
No.
but so this might not be the right question, but as a band, like as a creative person that's out there that's pushing their product,
Sure.
like I've been in bands before, and you kind of get caught up in this idea that, oh, we have to write a single, we have to write the one,
Sure.
we have to do this thing. And all the time you spend trying to do that, you're sacrificing your stage show, you're sacrificing promotion, you're sacrificing other things.
Sure.
Do you think that the way that the music industry is now, that it behooves you to spend all that time on that one song, or kind of just develop a really good show like as an entire package? Do you think that it should be a package deal, or it should be like a, you know?
Okay, well, you know, it really depends what kind of music you're playing, and it depends on your live show, and it depends on, you know, the genre that you're in is a big determining factor in that. In the pop music world, having singles, having radio play is a really important thing. You can't sell pop records without radio play. Maybe that will change in the future, but right now terrestrial radio is still really important in that. So labels who are looking to sign bands in the pop genre are looking for people who have a single or multiple singles usually. So, you know, but let's say you're a jam band. If you're a jam band and you're not trying to sell, you know, ringtones and get on K-Rock or Kiss FM, then yeah, having a single is not really important at all. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So yeah, if you're a jam band, then yeah, it's all about your live show. It's all about, you know, how fans react to, you know, to your songs in a live setting. So it really, you know, depending on your genre, it can change a lot. But I do think, you know, the more you try and work on writing a single, the further you get toward, further away you get from it. So I think if you focus on writing great songs and you try and find a niche and figure out what differentiates you from the other bands that are out there, you'll get closer.
Thank you.
I think that's a good place to leave it. It sounds to me like what you're saying is, you know, in essence, if you work hard and if you work hard enough and you're good at what you do, it doesn't really matter whether something's a single or not. If it's good music, you know, you and I were talking about whether it's a great thing to even be with a label. 10 years ago, the music industry was all about, 15 years ago,
sure,
getting signed to a label. I can't wait to get that record deal. And these days that can almost be limiting in some ways, in some genres and capacities. When you talk about, you know, there are people like Ani DeFranco who made relative empires out of like selling tapes and CDs out of the back of her car. People like John Mayer talk about how huge the internet was in terms of, right at the beginning, spreading his music virally. So, you know, I don't know that that single is something you need to be focusing on as much as, if Eric heard you live and loved it, great.
Yeah, plus it's like, I mean, the radio is sort of changing right now, and I mean, there's certain sounds and styles that will kind of always be popular, but there's a lot of new music that's catching fire right now that's just really different. I mean, I never thought I'd hear Mumford & Sons on K-Rock, and I've been a fan of that band for years now. Mm-hmm. Whoever thought you'd hear banjo right at the forefront of a mix on K-Rock? I never thought that'd be possible. So, and that's a big song. Like, those guys are selling a lot of singles and a lot of albums, and their entire North American tour has been sold out. So, kudos to them for bringing real music back. And secondly, I mean, but do you hear that song and think it's a single? And do you think those guys are writing and think, oh, we have to write a single, we're going to write this song? No, I think they were having fun and playing music, and they liked what they were playing, and they figured, okay, well, maybe someone else will like it. So I think if you ascribe to that same philosophy, how can you go wrong?
I'm Sarah Lee. This is Singing TV. Together, you and I, and with people who are awesome, like Eric Robinson, we're making singing simple.